Okay, we're going to do something different this video from what I've been doing. I will get back to some more quilting type videos, but in the meantime I wanted to help out Fanny from the Netherlands, who works very well with YouTube videos because she struggles with English, and she can put Dutch subtitles on the YouTube video, and that helps her understand what's going on. She's been a very good customer and very generous to me. I'm gladly helping out here with analysing this embroidery she's done. Now Fanny sent me her design and she included the image that she used. It's an image she got from Pinterest, and I looked up, there are a number of listings of this image on Pinterest, and I've put a link below if you want to follow along. Just a word of warning, I could not find any attribution for this image. I don't know where it originally came from. Just because it's on Pinterest doesn't mean it's necessarily free to use. So I tried to find out if there was any attribution at all that needed to be done, or whether it was in the public domain, or whether there was some copyright on it, and I could not find anything. So I'm going to go ahead. So if anyone does own copyright to this image, please let me know and we'll talk about what we need to do from here. But I'm hoping it's in the public domain. Now Fanny has digitized this whole, she's brought the image in at the size she downloaded it from Pinterest and digitized it as an embroidery. So the first thing to note is that this is very large. If I click on the image, it'll give me the size up here, and the size height is 198.48 millimeters. That's nearly 8 inches, 200 centimeters. That is a big design to be completely doing in solid stitching like this. If it was open stitching, like your lace work or your pattern fill or your blackwork fill, something like that, it wouldn't matter so much. But because it's all solid stitching, there's going to be an awful lot of pull, no matter how well you stabilize. Very large designs like this are hard to manage for the pull compensation. It's possible, but you have to do a test, so certainly you need to have plenty of pull compensation applied, and then even then you sometimes have to overlap the objects even more than the pull compensation allows for, and you sometimes even have to make them go outside the area that you planned. I do have a video about that called When Pull Compensation Is Not Enough, and I'll put a link to that below so you can understand what I mean by that. So in actual fact, I would not have digitized this size image with solid stitching like this. It doesn't really lend itself to open stitching because of the face here. So the other option you have is to make it into an applique or reduce the size. Now I have done an applique, let me just open that one up, of the same design at the same size, and here it is. So you can get quite a nice effect with applique. I've just used plain black for the hat, and I've put in a plain fabric for the, well, I just use colour actually for the face, but it will give you the option then of putting fabric there, a solid fabric. And I've used a patterned fabric for the collar and the scarf, but you can interpret this with any fabrics you like. So that's one way of getting around that lots of heavy stitching. There's a lot less stitching in this. It's basically just the borders, and you won't have the issues of the pull. I'll come back to how this applique was made in the next videos. This will be a 3-part series, so there'll be a section on how to create the applique step by step all the way through, and then I will also do another video about digitizing it as all embroidery in a smaller size. So here is my smaller size one, which I also did, and this one, if I select it, well, let's just select the image because it's close enough to the same size, and that is only 102 millimeters high, so that's about 10 centimeters, just or 10 and a quarter centimeters, and so that's about just over 4 inches for the whole design. So that makes these individual objects smaller as well. You still might get some pull issues, so you need to check that. What I did for this was I sized the image before I started digitizing, and I did use a slightly different stitch. I used the candle wicking for the necklace just as Fenny did, and you can see now that the candle wicks look a lot bigger because the design is smaller, so you have to make some sort of compromise. There are a couple of sizes in the candle wick stitches that you can choose from. I can't remember what size I ended up choosing here, but also in the, if I hide the image and just try and make this a bit clearer for you and put it back to 1:1, I did use the elastic fancy fill in the hat. And I did actually use elastic fancy fill in the scarf as well. I used a slightly different pattern than the one Fenny used just because it was the first one I grabbed that I thought it looked like the one Fenny had used. I've since checked it out and it wasn't quite the one, but the elastic fancy fill gave that more dimension, and I created 2 separate objects here for the scarf. I used ordinary step fill for the collar, but I did put in some angle lines for the stitching, so that's what has made this look more interesting. But I'll go back and show you how you can use different fill stitches as well. So just going back to the original design now, and we can see that well, what I'm going to do is just resize this design temporarily to show you. I'm going to hide the picture, what the difference between digitizing it from a smaller picture is as to digitizing it from the larger picture and then resizing it. So let me select the whole design. If you hide the picture, you can select just the design. So Control A will select the whole design very quickly for you, and then you can use your resize handles here to shrink that down. So I'm going to go down to about the same size, so that was about 102 millimeters high. So I've got to go smaller. Hide the height. There we go. Oh, that's a bit more. There we go. That's close enough. So this is about the size that, and I'll just zoom into that my design was. And you can see straight away here some funny things are going on if I zoom right in. That is trying to be a step fill, but a lot of it looks like satin because the stitches are so short in that step fill now because you've shrunk the whole fill in the elastic fancy fill, and so I'm not sure how that will stitch out, whether it's going to look exactly like that, because what shows on the screen is a pretty good rendition but not always exact. The pattern she used here in the scarf is really no longer a good pattern for it at that size because it's just a little bit too big, these circles. So it looks a bit imbalanced there. The candle wicking has shrunk down, and if you tried to stitch those, and they are slightly overlapped as well, which I think they were in her original as well, but now they're much shorter stitches as well. They're going to really be tough to stitch out because they've got very short stitches and there's a lot of stitches in each candle wick. So, and it's stitching on top of the face, or the neck stitching here as well. So I'm not sure how you would go stitching such tight candle wicks. The fill stitch hasn't come out too bad, the special fill stitch. Up here, what's going on with the lips? It's changed to a fancy fill of some sort, and it's changed colour as well. Let me go to the individual objects and go down to the lips. Okay, so there's my pink satin lip, and it looks like there's also, it's created a red fancy fill. I don't know how that happened. A red fill stitch pattern. So there was, if I undo back to the full size, perhaps she had that, there was an object here that she had, which was some sort of outline of red stitching. And it looks like that has converted into some sort of filled object, probably because the space inside here was too small to make a hole. Here's the original pink lips there. If I go out of true view, you can see I'm selecting the pink lips. Now I'm selecting that red outline sort of thing. I'm not sure why that's there and whether it's even needed. Okay, so as you can see, you're better off shrinking your image first and then digitizing it so that you can get some scale to the different types of fill stitches you used. Just now to go back and tell you about this different fill stitch in here. So if I right click on this one and go to the object properties, it will show you that it's a step fill, which is one of the basic fills. But look down here, we've got 30 different types of step fill. Most people just use the first one because that's the default, but you've got 30 different ones you can choose from, and Fanny has chosen number 26, which I think looks quite nice in this case. So that's entirely up to you. She could possibly have even put some stitch angles in there as well. I'm not sure, I haven't played around with that yet, using that particular fill. But have a look at these fills because there's so many. We can just click on this one, it's got like zigzaggy effect on it. We can click on this one, it's got a diagonal line effect. We can click on this one, it looks more or less like a standard fill, but it's slightly different. If we compare it to the standard fill, it's a little bit more bold. What was that, number 6 that I looked at? Can't remember now. Number 11, no, number 11. So it's got a little bit more of a diagonal line to it. Number 12 is more random. Number 14 is another more random one. Number 10 has got some diagonal look to the way the stitch ends up stitching. Yeah, so you might find something that suits the fill you want. That's quite interesting. There was a more, that's another basket weave type one. This one's more a column with a bit of zigzagging going on. More zigzagging going on. So have a look at these different fill stitches and experiment with them. Okay. Now, apart from the size, even if this was normal size, I did notice a couple of other things. That one was this outline around the lips really isn't necessary. You could lose that altogether. And the problem with that is when she's used the outlines and offsets tool to create the outline, it has actually outlined that red. It doesn't look like it's outlined, it looks like it runs through the middle because of the pull compensation allowed for in the image here. But actually this black outline has gone right round the outside and the inside of that red. So there's 2 outlines running around here. And then of course there's the outline for the face, which is making a 3rd line in this area here of outlining, where everywhere else it's a single outline. There's a couple of other places where we've ended up with 2 black outlines. Here's one. You can just see if I zoom right in, there's 1 line here and 1 line there. And that's because there is actually a gap between these 2 objects. If I hide these stitches, go out of true view, hide the stitches, and I'm showing the outlines, and it's really hard to see because of the colour. But I've zoomed right in. There is a beige line here from the face, and one of these 2 lines is actually the hat edge, and the other is the black outline for the hat edge, and this is the black outline for the beige edge of the face. Because there's a gap between those 2 lines, the outlines and offset tools has seen it as a separate object and outlined both, which has resulted, if I bring back the true view, in 2 rows of stitching coming through here. So when I show you how to digitize, I'll show you how to avoid all of that and just get the single line coming through. Don't worry if you, as I said, if you see some stitches sticking out from your outline, that is just allowing for the pull compensation. So obviously here the 2 objects overlapped enough and there's only a single line going through there. there were a couple of other things about the stitch order too. Vinny has put it in a stitch order, if I go into colour blocks, so that all the red is stitching at the one time. However, I would have preferred that the red of the inside of the hat stitched before the face, so that the face outline was the one that outlined and the red just tucked in underneath it. Because the red is stitching after, it's the red that's outlined, and in a big design like this you'd actually notice that it wasn't quite right. So, well, I would anyway. So sometimes, although it looks like it's, although this is a different coloured red, I think. Oh no, the same colour red. There is a gap between those two reds, but she has tried to put all the objects of the same colour together as much as possible to reduce thread changes, and that's fine, provided you actually get the result you want. Sometimes you just have to have an extra thread change to get the stitch order into the logical order, so that's something else to consider as well. So having gone through this design, as I said, and looked at the different issues that happen, I'm going to stop this video now, and I'll start making one about doing the applique first, and then I'll make the one about making an embroidery from it. So please comment below if you are interested in this process, and like and subscribe so that you don't miss out on the videos in the future, the other two parts for this. So make sure you turn on notifications when you subscribe. There's a notifications drop down menu, and you can put all notifications or just there's a couple of categories there that you can tick for your notifications. And happy digitizing.